Ed, I didn't know if I should start right now because I can hear you eating cookies.
Why are they so good?
Why are they so good? Well, if you're watching on our YouTube episode, you can see that Eddie has a beautifully presented plate with some Strupel waffle cookies and the McRae Do the Work mug.
Look at that. Oh, wait,
But
both sides? Yeah.
the truth is, listeners, I had made him a cup of coffee about 25 minutes ago, and I offered. I was like, can I make you a cup of coffee? He's like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was downstairs making the cup of coffee, and, sometimes I get distracted. And that coffee...
You don't say. You don't say.
That coffee sat in the old Nespresso landing
That's why it was so cold?
for a few minutes too long. Because, once I do one thing, like if I have to wait, the Nespresso, you have to wait for it to kind of like load, and then it's like filtering out. So I decide this is when I'm going to change out the flowers in the vases. I'm going to start start a load of laundry. I'm going to feed Bear. I made myself, as you can see, a fresh cup of lemon water. We have a little lemon tree out front.
I thought that was just cloudy water. Those looks gross.
So I was doing all the things, and then I look over a few minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes later. I'm like, oh, there's Eddie's cup of coffee. So I proceed to pour some cream in it and happily took it upstairs to our podcast studio. And about 10 minutes later, I was like, wow, you finished off that coffee? He's like, nope. I go, it wasn't good, was it? And you said, it's kind of cold.
Kind of cold. It was not good. I hate cold coffee.
And I was like, can I make you another one? You're like, no, I got my water here. And it's one of those things in a relationship where you're like, does their no actually mean no? Or is it, hey, I do want you to do that, but I'm not going to ask you again. It's fine. It's fine. I'll be fine. And I was like, I'm going to go downstairs and totally redeem myself. So not only did I make him a cup of coffee, but I put it on a pretty plate, added a few cookies. And let me ask you, Eddie, how now is your cup of coffee?
It's good now, yeah. It's nice and warm. It's not hot, but it's warm.
Eddie likes his food extra hot. He likes his coffee extra hot.
I do.
Yeah. And if it's not, there may have been a few times where I've made dinner and I've seen him walk his plate over to the microwave and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, some hot food, hot coffee. I'm a happy man.
Well, let's give a big, warm shout out to all of our listeners. If you are a brand new listener to the Choose Strong podcast, we want to say thank you so much. Our style here on the podcast is basically you've joined us at the table.
Yep.
So that's
Welcome.
really how we like to style this is you are our friends.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you push play on the Choose Strong podcast, we guarantee that you're going to leave with two things. One, a little chuckle, a little smile.
Yep.
But two, some encouragement for your week. And that's really our hope with this podcast is that we make it about you, about encouraging you in your journey to choose strong in everything you do. And the Choose Strong community is growing by the day. And we like to make this community about supporting one another, believing in one another, and especially encouraging each other when we're going through those tough spots. So if you're not part of the Facebook community, make sure you join in that because people are sharing their real everyday lives. Every weekend we get to hear about people from the community meeting each other out on the trails, at races, road marathons, or just at events. It's super cool to see people making friends that have come out of this community. So we always say we are the strongest community around. Strong love, strong mind, strong body. And we have a strong host here who's going to kick us off today. Eddie, do you want to welcome our friends who are training right now?
Yes. Again, like we say every week, well done getting out there, getting after it, grinding, chipping away at that goal that you have, whether it's just to get in shape or if it is that 50K in the future, that half marathon next weekend, or maybe it's not even on the calendar yet, but you're like, I'm just getting in shape because I might be bullied into running a marathon like Eddie was.
Huh.
Hey, I'm just
We're going to use that strong word,
saying.
bullied,
I'm
huh?
just saying. So,
it's
but
pretty
whatever.
hard to bully someone into a marathon. That's quite the distance. 6 months of training dedicated every week. Pretty sure there was some natural commitment there, babe.
Yeah, a little bit. But you know what? Those of you that are out there grinding, we see you. We see you. Keep it up. I like it.
I'd also like to give a shout out to my sister Leah, who gave me this Cup of Sunshine yellow mug. And Leah has recently been choosing strong by planting and growing her own fruits and vegetables. She's out in the garden all the time. I just had a conversation with her on the phone the other day, and I thought, that is one thing that if I wasn't doing all the things, you know, the training, the app, writing, we're doing this podcast, we're raising kiddos, but I feel like in maybe another phase in my life, I would love to spend time gardening.
Yeah.
I think you're outside, you're in fresh air, and you are basically creating a garden to watch something grow. And when it grows, so whether you're growing strawberries, tomatoes, which are like my favorite, I love homegrown tomatoes, flowers, herbs, man, it's so satisfying when you go and you pick the fruits of your labor. So shout out to all our gardeners, particularly my sister Leah.
Shout out
I'm
to
so
Leah.
proud of you for doing that, because that's hard work too.
Yep.
But man, it's tangible work. You get to feel and enjoy the fruits of your labor. But you got to commit to it. You got to pull those weeds. You got to make sure those bugs aren't attacking all of your plants, and you got to tend to it day after day, water it, make sure it's getting the right amount of sunlight. So, yeah, choosing strong isn't just about signing up for a race. It's doing things in your everyday life that are creating a full life. And you know what's so cool is Leah sent me a whole box of little tangerines, lemons, and some beautiful plants that she's been planting to share with our family. So that in and of itself is just a wonderful part about having a garden.
Yeah.
You get to spread it onto others, and that was such a joy to be gifted that.
Yep. Thank you, Leah. We love Leah.
We love Leah.
All right. So should we move on? What do we got? What do we got over there? You got
Well, I wanted to give a quick update on the hats, because I know that
yes.
we released. So today is May 6th.
Yep.
And we did a pre-order on the black hats and the yellow hats again. As expected, those sold out pretty fast. So we have two updates on that. When we do a pre-order, typically once the pre-order closes, it's anywhere between 5 and 6 weeks before those hats come in. We don't have control over that, but we have seen the hats come in as early as 4 weeks. So what we're banking on is end of May, beginning of June for those hats to come in. So everybody that's been asking and is waiting for that hat, we are waiting with you.
Yes, we are.
And hoping that those come as soon as possible. But that is the estimated time of delivery on those hats. The second update is the past Gap and Berry merchandise, which is a really special piece that I have been working on, because that is going to include a little postcard with a picture of me running through the desert as I was training for Badwater. On the back is a little poem that goes along with the past Gap and Berry message, and that will be included with all past Gap and Berry merchandise. Now, I'm really picky in particular with this piece. I want the sweatshirt to be just right. I want the hoodie to be just right. I want the crop and the shirt and all that. So we have been testing all of the materials for the past 2 weeks. The logo's done, but I am testing the materials. We're trying to get the ink just right. If you have not seen the logo yet, we're going to flash it up here on the screen right now on the YouTube channel so you can see it. But there's a lot that's going into this piece of apparel, and I'm very excited to release it. But that's going to be happening very soon. We're hoping within the next week.
Yeah.
That you'll see that up on our merch site. So that's just the answering some really big common questions that are coming at us lately. If you haven't checked out our shop, you can go to SallyMcRaeMerch.com. But also, if you're ever in trying to look for links, whether it's my YouTube channel, whether it is any of my social channels, you can always go to SallyMcRae.com. And you can find everything there. All the links to everything that I do are there. So please check that out. The third announcement, and this is actually a really big announcement. I'm really excited to share this. I had mixed feelings at first, but it is in regard to my app. So for the past year, I have been working really hard on trying to get some other race distances into the app. And people have been asking for 100-mile training plans, 50-mile training plans, all this. The problem that I've been having, so I've been having a problem, is the technology and the platform that I use has made it really difficult to upload these programs in a way that makes it user-friendly. So I have a 50K program in there right now. It's the way it's laid out is, a lot of people have used this. Well, I can't believe how many people use it every week. People are PRing. We've seen a lot of success from that. But uploading a 100-mile training plan, 50-mile training plan, I keep on hitting some dead ends. There's been a lot of frustration. It's not doing what I want it to do. And I think that the user experience will be frustrating as well. And so we are going to be rebranding my app, and we're going to try to figure out a different platform in which to release my training plans. But for now, to our listeners, we want you to know that we are going to be just focusing on strength. So my app is strength-based. It's as you know, that's like my favorite thing. That's kind of like my niche in the endurance world, is encouraging people to always strengthen their body, regardless of what you're training for your everyday life. And my workouts that are in the app, they are made for everyone. You don't have to have a gym. You don't need a lot of equipment. At most, you use like resistance bands and some dumbbells. You can find workouts in there that are 5 minutes, 8 minutes, very short strength workouts and very specific to get you strong head to toe. And these are workouts that I have created. And so Eddie and I sat down last week and we just kind of made that decision that we are just going to pivot from my great frustration of trying to put these bigger race plans into an app that does not fit what I want it to do, and just focus primarily on strength. So what does that mean for you? If you are already in the app, you're still going to see all the same workouts in there. We're not taking anything away. The 4 and 6 week program will stay in there. But we will be releasing workouts every single week, 1 to 2 a week. You're going to see a lot of new categories in there, and you get everything from mobility, stretching, knee strengthening, total body workouts, lower body, core. There's a lot of different categories that you can kind of hit. And most of these, if not all of these workouts, you can do right from your home. And the last thing is, if you're looking for a way to support our work, this is the hands down best way to support us. So getting in the app is a great way to support our podcast. It helps support the film documentaries that we want to make, because those are probably the most expensive thing that we do is doing the films. And we are looking to do 3 films this year. And so if you want to support our work, we would love it if you download the app. A little secret that a lot of people don't know when you download the app is that you then have access to hundreds of other trainers. And there's everything in the app that you're able to use. There's also nutrition plans in there. There is meditation and sleep and recovery and postpartum, prenatal, all these very specific types of programs that are in there.
If you want to work on your basketball moves, there's basketball
literally,
skills.
There's basketball, there's cartwheel and handstand. Yeah. There's yoga, CrossFit, there's Pilates. There is a lot of super cool trainers that are in the app. And so it's totally worth it. You can get it for $99 a year, which I think is the best deal because that breaks down to about $8 a month. Pretty much that's an expensive latte every month. So I haven't talked about the app in a little bit. I think really because I've been so frustrated inside. I've wanted to, I've been trying to make the app do different things that it just isn't set up to do. So we have a team of wonderful people over on Playbook that have been so accommodating to us over the years as we've built out this app. And I think last year we ended the year as the top trainer in the app. And that is thanks to you, our listeners, for all of your support, for sharing it, for getting in there and doing it every day. That is a massive honor because when I look at all the other trainers and coaches that are in there who are absolutely incredible, I'm very, very grateful to be a part of that platform. So yes, good things are growing and coming with the app. I do apologize for all of the waiting, as some people have been waiting for those specific things, but we are now going to pivot and see if we can find another way to release the training plans. Ideally for me, I'd like to release training plans so everyone gets a snapshot of the entire 16, 20 weeks, 24 weeks. My 100-mile training plan is pretty long. So I'd love it just to be a little bit more user friendly. So we're working more on single link purchases where people can just go and download that training program and it's theirs forever to keep, but it's also much more user friendly.
Take a deep breath.
A deep breath. Eddie, I want to give a shout to people that are running right now. Make sure you take a sip of those electrolytes. You take in some calories. If you are racing right now, well done. Well done just for being out there in the race field right now. The best thing that you can do as you move along the race is break down your race aid station to aid station. So if you're doing a half marathon on the road, you are focusing on the aid stations. You are focusing on being the best that you can be in that step, in that mile. If you're in the middle of a 50K, a 50-mile, 100-mile race, break it down. Don't think about, look at how long I have to go before I get to the finish line. You think about, how can I be the best that I can be right here? And if you're working up a climb right now and you're like, wow, this is hard and I'm breathing really heavily, guess what? It's hard for everyone. So you do hard as best as you can. You be the best one on that hill or on that mountain at climbing in challenging conditions because you can. You trained for this. You got to that start line. You can get up that climb and you can take care of yourself. Now, if you hit a patch today, whether it's in a long training run or in a race where you're like, wow, my stomach doesn't feel great or I feel dizzy, intestines aren't happy, remember my number one tip there is that you slow down, but time yourself. Say, okay, I'm going to slow down for 5 minutes. I'm going to walk, I'm going to sip some water, or I'm going to stop in this aid station, but I'm only going to give myself 5 minutes and then I need to continue on and keep doing that until you start to feel better. But a lot of times you probably need a little bit more nutrition, maybe a little bit more hydration. Maybe your electrolytes are a little bit off, but don't stress. That's a great thing about races. You get lots of chances to recover and then to keep going. So, just a little insert of a coaching right there for our listeners.
Well done, Coach Sal. All right. I am going to take over.
Please do.
Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy my cup of coffee while you do
We've heard
that.
enough of you, okay? We're done with Sally. All right. As I always like to give a little bit, well, I'm going to start with some podcast love, some people that listened to an episode that got something out of it. I'm gonna highlight them real quick. So Victor, he listened on the YouTube on episode 57, was problem solving in race and in life, and Victor said, amazing episode, great insider tips, never a dull moment with Eddie and Sally. I listened to this episode while I was on my scheduled long run today. 97 minutes. Before I knew it, my time was up and I was 8.5 miles in. I remember I had a 15K challenge pending on Garmin, so I kept going. Again, before I knew it, I had completed my challenge, but with so little time left to complete the 2-hour run, I just kept going. You made this easy. I felt like I was right there. So
Mm.
Victor just kept going, just listening to episode 57, problem solving. And I thought of that. I'm like, man, there's so many people that write in that say, I haven't listened to the last 3 episodes because I'm saving all of them for my race,
Yeah.
or I gotta get caught up because I banked like 4 episodes so I can listen to them all straight through
Yeah.
the race, which is pretty cool.
Super cool. And again, just as we said at the beginning, it's pretty cool that people want to listen to us for so many hours. But guess what? We're your buddies.
We are your
So
buddies, yes.
you know that when you push play, we're here to support you. We're here to encourage you, and we love hearing about what you are accomplishing. That just brings me so much joy. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Well done, Victor. Okay. The second one is from Spotify. This is from Britt. Britt said, "The laughing is so friggin' contagious. I'm at the bottom of a squat, trying with all my strength to hold it together just to keep the weights up while y'all joke about Eddie's weekly workout goals. LOL."
Bottom of a squat. I
could just
love
see
it.
Britt
I
in
love
that
it.
squat.
Thank you, Britt. And Britt, well done getting that strength training done.
Yeah.
I forgot to give a shout to everyone that's in the gym right now, strengthening the body head to toe. I know, Eddie, speaking of your goals, that has really been the season that you are naturally pivoting toward. I know you love lifting. I don't think there's been a year, actually, even since we were dating,
Yeah.
that you haven't loved lifting weights. So my question is, when are you going to train for a bodybuilding program? Because I think you'd actually excel at that.
The interesting thing is that I love lifting weights, and yeah, like you said, I've been doing it for a while, but you cannot tell.
That's not true.
It's like,
looking
are
at those
you
biceps
sure
right now, like
that you've lifted weights for that long?
Looking good.
Maybe
to
I'm not
me.
doing it correctly. Maybe I should get a coach and.
I think you could do a bodybuilding
I don't think so. That's weird.
season. It's not weird,
Yeah,
dude.
it
It's
is.
so hard.
I know.
It's so hard. And a lot of people, they go into that and they find out just how insanely disciplined you have to be. The eating part. People have asked me, have you ever thought about doing it? And I am just not willing to eat like that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat boiled chicken and broccoli for 4 months.
I'm willing to eat. I'm willing to eat the bulk up.
Oh,
section of
fun
of the training.
That's pretty much just how we eat
whatever
every day.
You want. I'm bulking up.
That's just the excuse. I thought you were training for. I am. It's bulking season. If you don't understand that, it's part of professional programming.
Well, donuts again. So it's part of the training regimen.
What phase is that?
Couple dozen donuts.
Couple dozen? I'm sure that's more than bulking. That's called a problem. Couple dozen. I love it.
All right. So, Britt, well done on the squat there.
Yeah. Well done to everyone in the gym lifting right now. I have been talking, I'm going to speak a little bit more specifically to our 40 and older group just really quick.
Okay.
Who I've been having a lot of really cool conversations because we are seeing more and more across social media and just in articles in general. People are talking about the benefits of lifting and strength training and how important it is as we get older. And so, I had conversations last night with a couple women about that and how they're leaning more into that than their normal spin class or, their 3-mile run that they're doing. They're like, I'm lifting like 5-6 days a week and it's just making me feel better head to toe. It's changing my body. And I really like lifting in the off season because this is going to sound so funny, but like, I love that it's a break from pounding and I get to just relax into each exercise. I mean, it's so mundane. It's so basic. Like you pick up the weight and you either curl it, shrug it, lift it, kick it back, push it, pull it, There, you have like one one thing you're going to do with that weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like this hyper focus, and it's not go hard, go home type workout. Although sometimes we can do like a Metcon style where you're lifting a little bit faster, like at tempo. But I think like overall, I've always enjoyed lifting because it's just peaceful to me.
Yeah.
It's peaceful because it's just something so basic. It's not complicated. I'm going to pick up that weight and put it back down, and lo and behold, the more that I do that, I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to feel better. And yeah, it's such a great way to go into off season. It's a great way to, come out of the off season and start building my aerobic base as I start training for races, just feeling, stronger. So well done to everyone that's lifting.
Yep.
And for those of you that are having a hard time figuring it all out, or have been told over and over again that you shouldn't lift and run, or you shouldn't lift and cycle or do all that, I just want to put a reminder in there that it does take a lot of lifting to get bulky. Mm-hmm. That's a myth. That, if you're a runner and then suddenly you start lifting a few days a week, that suddenly you're going to be bulky. It takes a lot of hard work. I know, Eddie, you know that, how hard you worked to build up strength and muscle. And then once you started training for the marathon, you were like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I lost a lot of it. I mean, you've been excited about getting back in the gym to build all of that back up, but it is a lot of work, a lot of dedication. People who genuinely get really big and bulky, I mean, it's hours in the gym every day.
Yeah.
And very specific programming in order to do that. So yeah, even if you only have 5-10 minutes, make sure you insert some type of strength training into your week a few times a week at minimum.
Yep. All right.
Moving
I
on.
Highlight two people: Strong Love and Strong Body.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is Strong Love, and it's more of a serious one, but it's from Mrs. M on YouTube. It says she listened while running in muddy, foot-tall grass today. My dad suddenly died almost exactly a week ago, and my amazing husband and kids and I are at my parents' house, and we finished making funeral arrangements today, and I was mentally exhausted. There wasn't time to go find somewhere nice to run, and there wasn't time to do all the miles I originally had on my plan. But something is better than nothing, and done is better than perfect, right? So I ran in the field and around the yard. I'm covered in mud, and I ran at a whopping 13 minutes per mile. But it brought my mental faculties back, and it gave me the energy I needed to continue dealing with life. Thanks for being in my ear, being open about life and struggles, and making me laugh. P.S. The open made me laugh so hard. Pretty powerful, right? Just getting out there and running around in the mud, and
I pictured the whole
I know, I was
scene
picturing it too
in my mind. It was really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Mrs. M, we feel for you. Well, thank you for sharing, first of all, and thank you for bringing us along and being a part of your kind of coping and getting through what you're going through with losing your dad. And we're grateful for you. All right, the next and last one is the Strong Body, Anna Lacey. She said she did 7 miles. This is from the Facebook group. 7 miles, 1,200 feet of vert trail run, power hike to train for the backpacking, the PCT this summer. I've had several setbacks, including a minor back injury where they cut through my glute and then breaking my wrist in January. But I realized today how strong I still am. So great to just get out and move. And she has a picture of herself, big smile, and her Strava, where she kind of walked around and ran and stuff. So Anna, well done on that 7 miles training with all those setbacks. Pretty impressive.
Did you give her some kudos, Ed?
I might have given her a kudo.
I know that you've become the kudo king lately on Strava.
The kudo king, huh?
And I think people really appreciate it when you go in there and notice what they're doing.
It's pretty inspiring what everybody's out there doing and putting their work in,
Absolutely. Hiking the PCT, man, I would love, that's definitely on the bucket list, even if it's just parts of it, That would be so fun. Eddie, you and I should just do it.
Let's go.
Like
Let's
when
do
the
it.
kids are out of the house, like
Just hike it.
let's
How
just.
long is it? Like a couple miles? 2, 3, 5, 4 miles? How long is it?
It's a couple thousand miles.
Okay. I don't know if I'm up for that.
We're talking from Canada to Mexico.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Would you get sick of me?
This is getting recorded, right?
Come on, we spend so much time together. I think that we could do it. And yeah. I mean,
do you honestly do you think I could pull that off? I don't think I could.
Yes, I think you can do anything you set your mind to.
Okay, I know
and
that's the
dedicate yourself in training to.
I know that's like your answer that you're going to give me, but like let's be honest. Like do you think I can pull off the PCT trail along
if you
with
can endure me as your wife, you can endure anything.
PCT would be a piece of cake.
Yeah. And when we see bears, all you got to do is beat me.
That's true.
As long as you're not the one
That's
closest
true.
to the bear.
I mean, I guess if we spread it over like a couple years, I can do
I
it.
mean, some people will do that. Like they'll hike part of it, you know, because not everyone has 3 and 4 months to take out of their life to just go hike.
Is that popular where they'll hike like a big chunk and then they'll go and come back and do the rest?
Yeah, and some of it is funding. It's like, okay, I can go and fund and leave my everyday life for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll hike for 3 weeks, come home, work, and then they'll go back to the spot where they left off and then continue on. Ideally, though, it is kind of a dream journey to be able just to go and do it all at once. And, you know, it takes people several months to do that. So, you know, you're definitely disconnecting from your everyday life. And because we are so close to the PCT, you know, Angeles Crest 100 here in Southern California, which is one of the oldest, most popular hundreds, very old school, the way it's ran. People don't hear about it as much anymore. It's just a very old school race. But that is where I first started training. Most of all my mountain runs were in the Angeles Crest National Forest. And so cool to always be seeing people on the PCT. You run a lot on the PCT, and you know, people with their big backpacks, you know, they've been hiking for a couple months, and so listening to their stories and how far they're into it, how many attempts they've had, it's super inspiring.
That's cool.
One thing I've always noticed though is like everyone I would always encounter, they're just so peaceful, you know, and I don't know if it's because like the spot that we're at on the PCT, most of them all been out there for a while, and life is just, it's so simplified and life is slowed down so much that every day is just about moving forward. That's it. You're just getting to the next point, you know, on the PC. And there's places along the way where you can have little caches of stuff like dropped off or hidden. They have like these boxes where you can resupply, restock.
Okay.
Some people will drop into, I remember I was doing trail work when I ran the AC 100 in 2022 for the Choose Strong project. And I did like 8 hours of trail work. And then I went into Wrightwood, and the small town, little mountain town of Wrightwood, I went and grabbed a sandwich, and I was sitting outside in the sun. And there was a girl who had just come off the trail. She'd been hiking for like 2 months. And we sat and had a conversation. She had her pack right there, and it was just neat to like hear her stories. But she'd come off the trail to restock, get some food, take a shower. And then she was going to be continuing on. So yeah, I think that would be something that, I don't know, even if we just did a part of it, you know, that trail would be super cool. The John Muir Trail is really popular. You know, that's like a 10-day.
10-day?
10-day hike. Okay.
It's more doable.
Maybe, yeah.
That's
all
more
right.
doable.
Okay. I love hiking. I think you slow down and you really get to enjoy the shapes and sounds and smells and the beauty around you. It's not really about speed. It's just experiencing, you know, nature and all its beauty and kind of slowing down in life. So yeah. Yep. I don't know how we got started on that, but let's keep on.
Let's keep on rolling.
Keep
on
rolling here.
Well, that's all I got over here. So I'm going to pass the ball back to you. Yes.
Okay.
Take the mic.
Okay. All right. Now is the time where we dive into Eddie's goals.
Okay. Not Eddie's goals.
Eddie's goals have become one of my favorite topics to talk about on this podcast. Actually, to finally share with the world, because it has been a weekly conversation in our house since we have been married. There's always something that Eddie is working toward. There is always a grand idea that he has in his head that he wants to do.
You.
Yeah, pretty much. And here's the thing about Eddie's goals. They're not conventional. They do not run in the way that all of the trainers, coaches, life gurus would necessarily dictate. Eddie does things his way.
I like to do my own thing.
If you know Eddie, he likes to do his own thing. See, if I had a penny for every time people are like, "Oh, Sally rules the roost. Sally is the boss," that is not true. Eddie does what he wants to do. He is quite stubborn, and there is I do not dictate his life whatsoever. And when it comes to his goal setting, for as long as we have been married, going back to what I was saying, I have found that because you are so goal oriented, that even if you state a goal and you're like, I'm going to do this and this, and suddenly that goal starts to morph into something else. You're still working on your goals. So the idea is like you're still working towards something. And consequently, you have always stayed in pretty good shape because of that.
Yeah.
And any season that you have gotten out of shape, which I will tell you, the only times I've seen Eddie truly get out of shape is when I was pregnant.
That's true.
Those are the only 2 times, because I love to eat extra meals when I was pregnant. Lots of extra meals. And Eddie's like, you know what? I'll eat with you, babe. Babe, I'll also have 5th dinner. And those are the only 2 seasons that you have gotten slightly out of shape. Yeah,
no,
slightly.
It's definitely out of shape. I think for me too, it's when you're like ramping up training for a race, and I have to be careful because, you're able to just eat whatever. Like you're training, you need to, you get your carbs in and whatever.
If I need to slip in a donut here and there, I do.
Or some ice cream. It's like, I need to be careful because I'm not training a percentage, 1% of what you're doing. So I just need to be careful. So I always have to all right, do I want to look like I did when you were pregnant? No, I don't. I don't want to feel that way either.
Do you also want to look like you're pregnant? When people say we're pregnant, Eddie took that literally.
Yes, we are. Thank you for pointing that out.
Whose belly is bigger? I don't think that was the goal, but I think Eddie wanted to empathize and have as much compassion.
I was just trying to be a really good husband and really sympathize.
So that when I would complain about my changing body and, oh my gosh, could I be any bigger? Because I did gain a lot of weight with both the kids. You're like, it's okay.
It's okay. Have you seen me? I'm right there with you. We're in this together.
You need to buy bigger pants? Me too.
Me too. Forget it. Let's just go sweats. Let's just go sweats and forget about it.
Netflix and chill 7 days a week? Yes, I'm right there. And then the babies were born.
Yeah.
And you realize that my babies were born and you were left with.
What? What was I left with?
Well, you had to then get yourself back into shape alongside me. So we had to put an end to that season.
Yep.
And when that season came to a close, I was like, I know with both the kids, I was like, time to get this train back in shape.
Yes.
Like we're back in the gym.
Oh yeah.
We're walking the stroller. Yeah. And you were right there with me.
I was.
Yeah. So super proud of you, Ed. But I think the community would love an update on your goals.
They would not.
They do.
Want an update.
They want to know because your goals encourage them,
Yeah.
and people understand that there is no perfect, smooth way of completing your goals. That sometimes it's just about consistently getting up and doing something.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about that over breakfast this morning.
It's true.
I literally said to Eddie, something is better than nothing. Done is better than perfect. And
She did.
even though you probably didn't do everything you said you were going to do last week, you did do something every day.
Yeah, well, I think last week again was the 6 miles every other day. I think was my goal. I gotta start writing stuff down, but I don't think I ran at all. I didn't run one time, so that goal definitely did not get.
You did do a hike on
checked.
the treadmill because you were waiting for me to finish my
Oh.
workout, and you were like, "How much longer are you going to be?"
Yeah, and I ended up going for like an hour. I'm like, oh gosh, like so.
Eddie doesn't always like going to the gym with me because he's always like, "How long are you going to be?" Because I got about 41 minutes in me.
Yeah, I'm not doing 3 hours.
I like 3 hours.
So yeah, I didn't quite get my 6 miles every other day, but yeah, I did hike that day in the gym. Not planning on it, but I did, and then we did a 3-mile hike at Los Leones.
We did a 3-mile
So
hike
that
together at Los Leones.
Was fun, and
We also did a 3.5-mile walk on that Monday morning. Remember, Marky took us home.
yes, we did.
So we did you did get in a lot of hiking.
Yeah, I got a
So
lot of
you had
walking and hiking.
4 days of that, which is like my favorite. I feel like
Yeah.
I could walk all day. So you did that.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you do?
I got to the gym a couple times. So
Every day.
Every day, yeah.
Mhm.
So my goals were not met in the exact ways that I set out for them to be met, but I
Right.
did get out there and I did something.
Well, I want to know mentally, how do you feel?
How do I
Like,
feel?
like, do you end Sunday night and you're like, "Oh man,
No.
I did it again. Said I was going to run
failed
and I
again.
didn't."
No.
Like, do you at least look back and be like, "Dude, I did something every day."
I'm like, yeah, I got out there and did something. That's how I
Yeah.
am. Yeah.
And
Yep.
then when you woke up this morning and you sat up in bed,
Got my goal sheet out. I don't write it down. That's the thing. I like think about it and I'm like,
I've seen your notebook. I
Yeah.
have seen you write down stuff before.
yeah, I
in the past.
have in the past, but
I
the
have
last few I
seen-
haven't written them down.
It's made me giggle. Eddie loves his notebooks. He just gets these blank notebooks. They're lined little black notebook, and he writes his to-do lists in there. He writes down stuff that's going on with the kids. Their schedules are in there. His to-do list for around the house projects.
I'm starting to transition digitally. Okay, I'm not just going paper and pen
Hey,
anymore.
there's something
All
about
right.
the paper and pen.
There is,
You
but-
feel a little bit more connected. There's something about the physical handwriting,
Yeah,
if you will,
if you will.
printing, that kind of imprints it into your mind a little bit better. I
Yeah.
feel like. I mean, I can never not be
I
writing.
think there's science to prove that.
There is.
Yeah, yeah.
I have this. I've talked about it before. I buy a sketchbook.
Mm-hmm.
You can get them online, or you can go to. I think I got mine at Barnes and Noble in the clearance section. It's this like 8.5 by 11 black sketchbook. Inside, it's blank
Mm-hmm.
paper, and I draw. I write goals, ideas, my to-do list for the day. I write prayers in there. I mean, the thing is almost. I don't have very many pages left. I started it January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably fill up 2 to 3 books a year. Lots of writing goes in there. I love the written word.
Yep.
I love just writing it out. I still do stuff like right before if I'm doing my nighttime routine, I'll definitely do the notes app in my
Yep.
phone,
Mhm.
and I'll write that to-do list, like everything, and then I just text it to
you.
myself,
Yeah.
and I wake up the next morning and that to-do list is right there, just
Yeah.
to, because you know how at night suddenly you're reminded of everything,
Mm-hmm.
like everything kind of rushes to, oh man, we didn't do this today, or oh yeah, upcoming we have this. Like there's something about the slowing down of the day that everything rises to the top,
Yeah.
that you either didn't do, or that's urgent, or that's important. And so I like to, during my night routine, I just close the door of my bedroom. I start getting things ready for the next day, washing my face, all of that, turning down the lights, closing the curtains, and all those thoughts come to mind. So I just type them out real quick in my notes app, and that's been really helpful.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long. You just write a word or a phrase or whatever, and And then in the morning I wake up and that to-do list is right there, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel so frazzled. I start off my day knowing what I need to do. So, um, I don't know what you are planning on this week, Eddie, as far as your goals go. You and I already talked about going to the gym together today, because Monday's typically a recovery day for me.
Mm-hmm.
Easy hour run, some lifting. What are you going to be doing this week?
I'm gonna circle back on my last week's goal, and I'm gonna try my best
The
this week.
circle back.
I'm gonna try my best this week to get.
Let's try that one more time.
Yeah, every other day get 6 miles in, and the other days try to lift. So that's I'm gonna go back to the original goal, and see if I can tackle it successfully.
You know, Eddie planned something super special for me. I talked about this in another podcast. You got tickets for us to go see Seinfeld,
Yep.
Gaffigan, and Nate. It was Netflix as a joke. We got tickets to go to the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
And before that, we decided, I was like, let's just go like on a hike. I've always wanted to take you to Los Leones Trail.
Yep.
It's a very popular, on the weekends, a very crowded trail, but obviously you know why now, Eddie, that you have been there. It's about 1.5 miles to this point that plateaus. So if you just put Los Leones Trail in LA, it actually is more like in the Santa Monica area, but and it's in the Santa Monica Mountains. The Santa Monica Mountains border the ocean. It's home to the Backbone Trail, which is like this 68 mile trail, but the beginning of the trail. So, and you can get to the Backbone Trail, Santa Monica Mountains, from several different points, but the Los Leones Trail is very popular. It's beautiful. It's a single track. About 50% of it is like a canopy of trees, so you get a lot of shade as you go up. You got beautiful views of the ocean. It plateaus to overlook all of LA City. You look out and you can see Venice Beach and Santa Monica, and it's just an awesome hike, and it's enjoyable. You can take anyone on it. So you climb up in that 1.5 miles. You get about 500 feet of climbing in the 1.5 miles. So, yeah, it was great. We went out there, and I was so excited to take you there, because my very early days of trail running, I would go out there all the time with the crew, and that would be the point of the beginning of a really long trail run. We'd go back towards the Backbone Trail. Anyway, as we were climbing, Ed, I kind of nudged you just ever so slightly, just putting it into your mind of possibly, why not do a 50K? I mean, I kept on pointing out, isn't this beautiful? Isn't this beautiful? Don't you love this trail? Wouldn't, and I know that you're training, you keep on wanting to do these 6 miles every other day. And so obviously you want to run. I'm not programming that. Like you're choosing to run.
Obviously.
And so, just curious if that's anything that you'd ever like to do.
I'm going to go on the record right now and say, no, it's not really crossing my mind. And I think part of it is because just on that hike alone, I think I twisted my ankle 3 times. So I don't know if I can run. Got some weak ankles.
All right. Well, you heard it first, listeners. Right now, he's saying no on the trail run. Every time that you put something on Strava that's even remotely close to a trail, people are asking that. So that's why I wanted to set that up and bat it out there, just to kind of hear your thoughts. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that. I'm definitely not pushing you toward anything. Because you always surprise me with your goals and what you're planning to do. Who knows? You might surprise me and tell me that you're signing up for the Long Beach Marathon. I don't know.
Probably not, but hey, you never know, right?
You never know.
You
never know. He might be signing up for a CrossFit competition, and see,
maybe
I don't know.
Not.
I could definitely see you swinging around on some of those rings. Those gymnastics rings they do. I can 100%
swinging around. You're like, I don't think that's what you're supposed to do on that event. Like all tangled up in it. Like, wow. Eddie, I don't know.
You're doing giants on it.
Like these, like perfect, like this awesome dismount, like off the rings.
like, no,
Nope,
that's
this is a different sport.
definitely not one of the events, but it's nice.
Oh,
But you're really
anyways.
good at it.
All right,
Who knows?
enough of me and that. Let's talk Western States. You
Mm,
are 54 days out from
wow.
Western States,
My heart rate
and
just went up when you said that.
we, the people, want to know how the training is going, how you feeling. You were, well, yeah. I mean, you got a lucky chance to go up to the Western States course. Was it last week? 2 weeks ago, something like that. And you got to run some of the course. So tell us, fill us in. 54 days out.
I know. I haven't chatted a ton about it. I mean, we've done some YouTube episodes on my training for Western States. We've talked to my coach, Jason Coop, someone that brought me onto his roster for this season. And really moving forward, I definitely have big goals even outside of Western States that we're definitely working toward improving and growing as a runner. So there's been a lot of changes this year that have affected me physically, emotionally, mentally, and I've loved all of it because it's just I think that's one of the coolest parts of a dream journey. And I always like to say dream journey because that's really what it is. Even when you have all these little goals, when I think of like my whole career, this is my 10th year as a pro. And I look back on my career and I realize there is so many times in so many seasons where that race and that season was such a big deal to me. And it was everything. It was what my whole life was focused on. That was what the training was focused on. But really it's just a part of a dream journey. And I'm hoping that this dream journey lasts a very long time. And even when my running career is over, there's going to be something else that I'll always be working toward. And so I'm really excited about Western States because that's really what kicked off my career. And I was signed 3 weeks before winning a golden ticket at the Sean O'Brien race back in 2014. So that was the first year I ran Western States. I finished in 10th place in a very coveted top 10 position. For those of you that are not familiar with the race, it's the most prestigious, oldest 100-mile race in the nation. It's also one of the most popular and most competitive 100-mile races in the world, probably second to UTMB. Which is a much bigger 100-mile race, but it is on a fairly big stage and always has a deeply competitive field. And so being in the top 10 on the men's side, being in the top 10 on the women's side, it changes your life. It changes your career as an athlete. Many doors of opportunity open up to you because of that. And I remember winning my golden ticket and feeling a lot of pressure in 2014. I was a brand new Nike athlete, now standing on the start line of Western States. That was going to be my second ever 100-mile race. The first one I had ever done was Andrews Crest 100. And I finished that on a fractured leg. So I didn't have this deep experience in the 100-mile distance. But what I did know is that I wanted to get really good at the 100-mile distance. And unfortunately, in the middle of my Western States experience, I caught a rock descending into Devil's Canyon, got a little bit of a twist in my knee. My knee kind of blew up a little bit, was in somewhat of a discomfort halfway into that race. My good friend Don Freeman from Trail Runner Nation taped me up at Forest Hill, which helped a little bit. It wasn't like a serious tape job. But I do remember at this point, Dave Daly and Colin Cooley, who both paced me all 3 years at Western States. Dave Daly was like, yeah, it's going to hurt. Colin said the same thing. It's going to hurt, but we've watched how hard you've trained and you got to push through it, Sally. Cause it wasn't like I had a broken kneecap. I hadn't torn a muscle or anything. My knee just was not in 100% shape anymore. And you can see that journey. My good friend, Billy Yang, he made his very first film documentary, which kind of set his career into orbit as well. So that same year that I got signed, his career kind of took off with Western Time, and really documents just the community and the spirit of Western States, the community of the ultra running, just the running community as a whole, and how when we believe in each other, how much that can strengthen us and enliven us and help us to believe in ourselves. And I think going back to Western States now, 10 years after the first year that I did it, so I did it in 14, 15, and 16. I finished 10th, 7th, and then 11th. 2016 was a little bit of a heartbreak. But having this opportunity to go back, I see as just a massive gift. And I almost didn't take it. I had all my plans and some really big goals set for 2024. And so I had to really search my heart and think about, okay, what can we do here? I know the kind of training that goes into Western States 100, and now I'm in the thick of it. I decided to embrace it, and I want to see what I can do on that course. After 8 years ago is the last time that I raced it, and when I look at the entrant list, which I typically historically don't ever really care who's on the entrant list. I've I learned very early on. I was like this even as a soccer player too. Don't be consumed with who is on the field or what they've done or what they're capable of doing. Be consumed with being your best.
Yeah.
And know that if there's other people out there better than you, that could be your energy that you could leverage to bring out the best in yourself. So appreciate that. Appreciate that there are people better than you. And I look at the start list for the women in this year's Western States, and I'm like, wow, there's like at least 15 solid women that could win Western States, aside from just like the 30 women deep that are just stellar, incredible, strong, fast athletes.
Yeah.
And, it'd be easy for me to be a little overwhelmed like that because the last 2 years, my training has been so different. And mine has been more about enduring and pushing my body to and beyond limits that I didn't even know existed, and not so much on fine-tuning speed and, fine-tuning all the little race strategies to move across the 100-mile distance as fast as I possibly can. So going back to your original question, just, how has that training been? It's been a lot of mental focus just in that. Sally, can you be the best that you can be? Can you be better than you were all those years that you raced Western States? Can you learn something new? Is there like a new door to unlock to reveal what you're capable of? And so that excites me. And I know that, being a little bit older now, it would be easy for me to maybe shy away from ever thinking of myself of even being in contention in the top 10. But I'm aiming for that and aiming for a great, strong day. And I think that it's so much better to aim for a goal that scares you, that maybe seems impossible, than to settle for, well, this is just where I am, or have a lack of belief in yourself, or think that you're not as good as this or that. And I think it's better to believe in great things, but with full respect, like to not be ignorant of all the training that needs to go into it. Like, I'm going to give my best every single day in training. I'm going to give my best in everything that I do in the lead up to this race, to have the absolute best day that I possibly can, and having full respect of what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are. I'm not a lead from the front from start to finish. Even my best year at Western States, I crushed the back half. I think I was the second fastest in the back half out of everyone in the top 10. But now it's a brand new slate. I can't rest on anything that I once did. And I can't, think that because I did this or that in the past, that's how it's going to be moving forward. And I try to live my whole life like that. I think it's a lot better to say, yes, I accomplished this and now we move on to the next thing, but also be like that in my failures. I failed here, but now we're going to move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having that mindset has propelled me through my career to never give up, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't. But the same vein in all of that is that you're always working hard, you're always believing, you're always trying. And so, I know I've shared with you in this build up that it's sometimes scary to even state my goals, to even like that. Sometimes I feel like lame or foolish or silly saying that what I want to do on that day, because it seems so outrageous or out of reach, or when you look at the field, it's like, okay, yeah, right, but aside from that, what if I trained in such a way? And that is something that I've talked about this in other podcasts. If everything that we did every day in our life, whether it was training for a race, training for a bodybuilding competition, whether it was working toward that certain position in your workplace, or valedictorian in high school, what if you always trained as if you were the best? What if you trained as if you were the champion? And that's how you lived your life always. And this isn't a point of pride. It's not, hey, I'm acting like I'm better than everyone else, or that, that that I sit back and I'm lazy and I just think that I'm great and I'm not doing the work. It's like, what if you trained and worked in such a way that you were the best at what you do? And that's how you showed up every single day. What would happen? Well, I think what would be revealed is that you're probably stronger and more capable than you thought you were. And you'll probably get way closer to whatever dream that you have in your head than had you just settled on, well, this is just how I always do things. This is how other people have labeled me. This is what other people have called me, or this is kind of like the pattern of my life. And I've always kind of sized up to just staying right here in this comfortable place, or, I don't think that I could amount to that, or I don't think I could achieve that. But what if we flipped that perspective and you treated yourself with respect, realizing that if you put the work in and you believe and you have great hope moving forward every single day, I think that's really where great things happen. And I think it's so fun to make a goal for yourself that sounds absolutely wild. That if you said it out loud or you post it on social media, everyone would be like, seriously? I say go after that one.
Yeah.
I say go after life is too short. Our goal setting should not be in accordance to other people's expectations. Our goal setting should not be in what in how we think people are going to respond, or the comments that we want to have from people, or the safe place, or where we can kind of just stay a shadow, out of the radar, because I don't want, if I fail, I don't want that attention. I don't want people to laugh at me. No, I think just go for it. I think, man, it's a lot better to fail over and over and over again, because that means you tried. I think how cool that to be marked by courage, which is going regardless of the circumstance, going even when you know it's going to be hard, or going even when you know there's a high likelihood that you are going to fail. That's courage. And that's really what I want to mark everything that I do. And that's what I want to mark my Western States journey in, is it's just courageous and it's wild and it sounds crazy. But I want the best part of me to come out. I want to be the best that I've ever been on that course. And I am going to go after the big, wild and crazy dream. And I hope that, listeners, this really is just a loving, friendly reminder to you too. If I am going to go after the big, wild, crazy dream, I think you can too. And why not? What is that goal that you have in your head, or what is that thing that you want to accomplish, or that line on your bucket list that you want to be able to check off or cross out? What is it? And that can even come down to a relationship goal, a career goal, something that's just really difficult in your life. Like, go for it. And why not try? I think the journey really is the best part, because here's the thing. I can't control anybody else's race strategy or what they're going to do when we're all standing at the start line. That's out of my control. And I can't prophesy how Western States is going to end. I can't tell you what the results are going to be. But I think sometimes we get so tied up with wanting to control all that we don't try.
Mm-hmm.
And we also think, well, the results are what is happening. It's kind of scary to think about because I can't control it. Like, I just don't know if I want to put myself in that space. And I say, what if you just release control and you understood that the value isn't in the result, it's in the journey. It's what you're going to learn about yourself along the way. Because what you learn and what you grow in and the way that you're going to become stronger in all of that as you work toward that goal, you're going to use that in other areas of your life. And I think that's a lot of times where we miss out. When I say a dream journey, this is why. Because you could work really hard for one goal that you have your mind set on and totally fail. And if you understand that all that work was still valuable, because you're going to use it for another goal ahead and probably maybe even a better goal. And you might look back on your life in 1 year, 2 year, 5 years and think, oh man, now I see how this all worked together. How my life isn't just stopping after each goal or each failure. It's like it is one long story.
Mm-hmm.
And all these events that I make so big in my mind that I think that are going to define me or make me a better human, or that I'm going to change or feel differently, they're really just shaping out this character and this beautiful story about my life, and this continuing on all the way until the end. And so that's really what I'm focusing on with Western States. I've had a long career and I've enjoyed a lot of podium finishes. I've experienced massive heartbreak in my failures. You know, I've had the highs and the lows. I've met some incredible people. I've been around the world and seen beautiful places on every continent in the world. It has been a full and incredible career, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I'm so grateful that this is what I get to do. And now I get to go write another chapter.
Mm-hmm.
This is another chapter, and I don't want to waste it. I don't want to waste it on, well, I'm 10 years into my career and, you know, I'll just kind of get this thing done. What if I showed up to training every day and I told myself, let's go for the biggest, wildest goal and let's train that way.
Mm-hmm.
Let's train like what is the best possible outcome, and let's reach for that. Let's focus on that. And I would say that most people who have sport as their career, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, I mean, nobody is waking up and saying, I want 5th place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want that NBA ring, but you know, getting 5th in the league is why I get up in the morning. And I think it just goes back to that mindset again. Train as if what you're doing is based on being the champion. It's based on you are the best at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to get the best out of yourself. Don't worry about what anyone else thinks of you. Don't compare. Don't scroll. Don't look at stats. Just be your best. And only you can feel and know what your best is. And I think that when you bring your best and you demand your best every day in all that you do, great things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So talk to us about your most recent training, a few days up in the Western States course.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity. I've done 2 training camps so far up on the Western States course. It's pretty common. You know, if you're familiar with Western States and you follow it closely, it's pretty common that people that are racing it are hoping to get as much focus training in Western, the Western states build up as they can. So we've seen athletes move to Flagstaff and they'll live there for 7-8 weeks. Flagstaff, Arizona. It sits at 7,000 feet. It's very close to the Grand Canyon. So you get altitude and heat. Wonderful training ground. And then there are people that will move up, a little bit closer to Tahoe, where you're at altitude. You get some good rugged climbs. A lot of times it's covered in snow. And so, people will go and train on the actual course in Auburn, Michigan Bluff area, Forest Hill, and just get some solid focused training in. And so that's what I've been trying to do. I'll do these mini camps where I'm running anywhere between 70 and 90 miles over the course of 3 days. And coach has just been choosing certain parts of the course for me to run on. And it's just very focused training. So I travel up north. There's a quick flight. It's like an hour, 15 minutes that I take. I basically hop on a plane at 6 a.m. and I am off the plane, or no, my flight is 7. I'm off the plane like at 8:15, and then I'm headed out to my first training day. And the focus of the 3 days is quality training and mental training too. I really love taking snapshots of the trail. I know the Western States Trail very well. Spent years training on it. I've been a part of the race in some capacity for the last decade, minus like 1 or 2 years, like around COVID. And then I think 1 year you and I went away for our anniversary. So outside of that, I've been a pacer 3 years. I raced it 3 years, commentating a couple years. It is a very special race to me. The area is very special. I love it. Every time I go, I feel like I run with a smile the whole time. And I just don't take that time for granted. But it's hard too. The camps are very hard. And I come home tired, as you know, Eddie.
Yep.
It's a dedicated time away from the family. So I'm away for, 3 days, and that's not always easy, especially this time of the year. The kids are wrapping up the year, and so it's really busy. Mackenzie is like going into CIF finals, working her way up to state. And so I typically like to do the camps in the middle of the week where the trail's a little bit quieter. The kids, I don't miss any of the kids' events or any weekend family or social events. So it does keep the week very busy, because it's just as soon as I get home, we're back. We're catching up on work, birthday parties and prom. And, last night we had a big family friend event. And so it's a lot that I'm, kind of juggling at this time of year. I know you, Eddie, have been just a massive support in all of that. And I know it's a gift to be able to do these camps. Not everyone can get away for 3 days to go and train somewhere. But, this is my career, and this is how I do my best to take it seriously and really focus on what I'm doing, because I don't feel like, I don't feel like I've ever been the most talented runner on the start line. But I do like to discover and find ways that I can just train a little bit harder and be the best that I can be on race day. So the little advantages that I will give myself are knowing on race day, when I hit these sections in the course, I will mentally tell myself, I trained here.
Yeah.
I put in the work. I was here over and over and over again. Sally, you got this. Keep moving. Like, this course. Like, little things like that are incredibly valuable. In fact, I did that with Tahoe 200 last year. I went up, I had a training camp, and that is actually what helped me when I got delirious in the last section of that race, when I was kind of hallucinating and not really knew where I was. I remembered sections from my training, because I ran it 3 times in the training camp that I had. So snapshot pictures, I'm a very visual, photographic person, and I can remember things really well, right down to shapes of rocks and logs. And I don't know why those things are always very powerful for me in my training. And this last camp was really special, because I think a couple things happened at the last camp that I was like, this is one, why I love the sport. And 2, it also like just recentered me like back to earth as to why I do what I do and my favorite part of the sport. And I woke up, it was day 2 of training camp, and I was going to do this run. We call it Double Canyons, and it is a freaking hard training run. It's a little over 10,000 feet of climbing in 30 miles, and you run through the canyons twice. So, Western States, it is well known for the brutal Devil's Canyon climb. It's usually one of the hottest parts of the course. It is a relentless steep drop into these canyons, and then you climb out of it. And it is just this steep, brutal climbing. I think it's like 1,400, 1,500 feet of climbing in like a mile and a half or something like that. But then you drop down into El Dorado Creek, and then you climb out of the canyons again to get to Michigan Bluff. So Double Canyons is basically an out and back from Michigan Bluff. And you can also start at Forest Hill too. You can run backwards that way. So I started at Forest Hill. I went all the way out to Last Chance. These are aid stations, by the way, that I'm talking about. And then the goal was to turn around and come back. So I had a big day plan. My pack alone weighed probably about 12 or 13 pounds. And I had all the food and fluid that I would need. I knew that some of the rivers and little rock waterfalls would be flowing, so I planned to drink out of those spots as well. But I was packed heavy. I had a plan for the day, and I get about 6 miles into this run, and I'm running backwards on the course from Forest Hill to Michigan Bluff. Now, Forest Hill is the 100K mark, and I'm running back to Michigan Bluff, which is about 54 and a half miles into the race. Forest Hill is about 61 miles into the race. And I'm running backwards toward the Michigan Bluff aid station. Now, if you know this section, or if you don't, you know that you're running through forest. And at certain parts you hit forest road. And the way the trail goes is like you'll pass over this forest road, but it's like dirt. Like you're surrounded by trees. It's not like an actual like paved, beautiful road. There's not traffic signals. Like you're literally in the middle of the forest. And then the single track, you'll cross over this forest road, this wider path, and then hop back on to the single track. And so that's what I was doing. I hit a forest road like a couple times. Mm-hmm. And it's a Wednesday. There's nobody out there, and which I loved. It was quiet. It was a beautiful day, and I'm just running along, and I'm coming up off the single track, and I see the forest road ahead of me, and I can see where the trail then continues on the other side, because the forest road is probably only like 9-10 feet wide. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, all right, I'll make sure. And I have the map. I have a GPS map. It's the Western States Trail. Yeah. You can download it. And so I make sure I'm staying on track. And right as I step onto the forest road, this white Jeep Cherokee rolls up, and the driver's looking right at me. And it's a Chinese man. I can see there's a young Chinese woman next to him. And he rolls down his window, and I give a big smile, and he's kind of staring at me. And I think maybe he recognizes me. So I look closely. Maybe I know this guy too. And so I'm smiling and say, hey, how are you guys doing? And he kind of looked confused. So then I was like, I go, are you guys lost? Are you okay? And he doesn't say anything to me. Mm. And the girl doesn't say anything to me. They're both just kind of looking at me. And so I pause there, and I walk closer to the car, and I was like, you guys okay? And he starts speaking in Chinese. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna have a language barrier problem here. So then I try to like slow down my English and just say like 1 or 2 words. Can I help? Are you lost? Like just hoping that maybe one of those words we connect on. Yeah. And he gets out of the car, and he looks at me. He's looking me up and down. He's like, oh, you run. Yeah. I'm running. I'm heading to Michigan Bluff. So now, and I look in and I see the girl jumps out of the car. He says something to her in Chinese and she jumps out and she's decked out in all Adidas stuff, head to toe. And she runs over to me. And I'm kind of looking at her. She looks like she's like maybe in her like late 20s. And he's talking to her in Chinese. And I'm a little confused, like what's going on. And he looks at me, he's like, she run with you. And I was like, wait, what? And in that moment, I'm thinking, okay, I have this big day of very focused training.
Yeah.
And it would be really easy for me to be like, okay, I don't have time for this. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, a random person just stopped in the middle of the forest and now is telling his runner to jump out and run with me. Like, I'm not sure. One, like, am I responsible? Is he dropping her off? And like, am I now responsible to run with this person? They don't know what I'm doing. I have a really long run that's very difficult. Also, I think that that following weekend was going to be, it was like the following weekend was going to be Canyons 100K. And so I don't know if this girl's actually trying to see the course. Maybe this is an international that's like come to run the Canyons 100K. So then I say that, Canyons 100K, and they're like shaking their head. And then I say Western States, and they both look at each other and they're like smiling. I'm like, okay, so maybe they are going to be running Western States. So then he just says over and over, she run you. And I was like, you know what? Why not? Why not? Like, let's just see where this is going to go. So everything's moving very quickly now. He starts talking to her. She gets her pack. She shoves some waters inside. She's all excited. She's jumping up and down. She's starting to stretch her legs, and she's just looking at me with these big, hopeful eyes. And the way that I'm assuming this to be is she's been trying to figure out where on the Western States course to train, where she should start, how the course moves along, and I'm thinking that she's just so happy to run with someone.
Yeah.
And maybe coming over from China, they just think that people are going to be out on the course, like running all over the place, right? like they're just trying to figure it out. And, Ed, I have been in these situations, which I'll share later on, so many times in my life where I've had these really interesting encounters that I say, okay, this isn't by chance. This isn't just some random, I bumped into you and I'm in a crowded area. You could have bumped into 100 people. This isn't just like a whatever. We're in a mall. So of course I'm going to run into people, or of course we're going to say hi, or, I'm in the middle of a forest. Yeah. I haven't seen anyone for an hour. And my training the day before, I don't see anybody. And where we are going is the high country where we will further not see people. Yeah. And I'm like, this could be a really cool story. And I've thought about the other times in my life where I've had very similar encounters like this, where I just want to open up my heart to what the possibility could be. And I understand that this is how life is supposed to be. If we open up our hearts and our minds to people around us, and those very odd encounters are not coincidence at all, they're actually supposed to happen. Like, what happens when we just go with the flow and we just go with it? And so I'm thinking, what if something super cool comes out of this? What if I get to make a new friend? Or maybe I get to help someone that was lost. And I think of all the times that people have helped me. Yeah. Strangers that have helped me. People have taken time out of their day and given effort to help me just because. And I think that is such a beautiful part of life. But I also feel like some of those encounters have happened when I'm having a low season in my life. And that has been a great way to get out of that low season. When I stop focusing on what is hard in my life, what feels challenging or what hurts, and I just open up my eyes to the people around me and realize there's life to be lived and there's people to connect with. And sometimes when we can connect with other people, we understand that there's a lot more in life that's going on than just the stuff that's in our life,
Mm-hmm.
and when we can create community and connect and be kind and friends, like stuff grows from that. And we're able to move on from what it is that we're sitting in. And we're able to build something cool and to create something cool. And I start running with who I then learn. Her name is Lin Chen. And I start running with Lin Chen, and she is just stride for stride next to me. I feel like her coach was like, you stay right with her. Because I'll tell you what, this girl is fitter, stronger, and faster than me. No doubt about that. Very fit. I mean, she was springing up the climbs. Like, we stayed on this forest road, which is drivable, and her coach followed us all the way to the Michigan Bluff aid station. It's a drivable road. And every time we hit a climb, she was springing effortlessly up these climbs. And I thought in my mind, oh man, the next 20 miles, 22 miles with this girl are going to be brutal for me, not for her, if she is going to stay with me. So we get into Michigan Bluff, which I know we're going to have probably a chance at better phone reception. And I've had, for all of my travels around the world, I have this Speak Translate app. If you've ever heard of it, listeners, it's like the best app. You can download any language, and then you speak into it. You speak English into it if you're an English speaker, and then it will translate into whatever language that you want it to. And so I stop at the Michigan Bluff aid station. I'm like, I'm determined to have a conversation with these two because they don't speak any English.
Yeah.
And so I open up that app, and I come to find out that the man that is with Lin Chen is her coach. And this is their first time ever to the United States. Lin Chen tells me she just arrived. She literally just arrived for her first time in her life to America. And she is now on the Western States Trail, and she has no idea where to go, what to do, how this works. And it was just the most precious thing. And so thankfully, my app worked at the Michigan Bluff aid station, and we are talking back and forth. So I talk in English, it translates to them, and they are just so happy. The big smiles are coming over their faces because we're able to have a full-on back and forth conversation. And I learned that Lin Chen won a spot into Western States, winning a UTMB race. And so she is a golden ticket winner here. She's going to be a top contender in the race. She's a phenomenal runner. And she's asking, how far, Sally, are you going to be running today? And I said, well, I've already run, 7 ish miles. I'm going to go for another, 20, 25 miles. Do you want to join me? And he has somewhat of I can tell a Western States map on his phone. It looks a little different from mine. So we put our phones together, and I start showing him the points that I'm going to run to. So then he talks to Lin Chen and says, okay, obviously telling her like, yes, go with Sally. And they're like, yes, we will train with you. Is it okay that Lin Chen runs with you? And I say, yeah, I would love that. Like that would, okay, thank you so much. And she runs over to the car, and she brings out poles. And she starts running back at me. And I go, no, you can't have poles in Western States. And they look at me a bit bewildered, and they say, oh, in USA, no poles? And I was like, well, there's only a handful of races in the United States that allow poles. It's usually the 200-mile races, Hard Rock 100, and some of the more rigorous, bigger mountain climbing type 100-mile races. It's just rare. Not a lot of races allow them. In Europe, you can use them anywhere. You can use them for a 20K, a 50K. It doesn't really matter. Poles are pretty much allowed. And I look at her and I assure her, I go, you are so strong, Lin Chen. You won't need poles. You're going to be great. And so she kind of chuckles to herself. She runs back, drops her poles back. And then she stands there and she looks at me and she grabs my phone to speak into the app. And she says, what about bears and wildlife? Is it safe for us to be running out here? And she's very serious about this question. Well, lo and behold, the day before, I was out on a run on the course and I ran into a bear. The bear was up in a tree. And it was so weird because for all my years running, I've run into a lot of bears. We have small black bears here, especially on Mount Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of mountain lions in Santa Monica Mountains, which that is an animal I'm very afraid of. But I've run into a lot of bears, and they are, for the most part, very shy. They're skittish. They don't like being around humans. If they mess with you, it's they want to eat your food, but they don't want anything to do with you. And when I saw this bear on the Western States course, I remember as soon as I saw it was high up in a tree, probably like 10, 12 feet up in a tree. I remember being so calm. And I that's the first thing I was aware about myself, was how calm I was when I encountered the bear, because I ran so close to it. I was probably like 15 feet away from it, and it saw me and it got scared. It climbed down the tree as fast as it could, and it ran away. And this thing was big. And I just stood there. I was really calm. I wasn't afraid. And I thought, wow, that's a really cool feeling to have. Because what I understood in that moment is, like, when you encounter wildlife, these aren't, little cats and dogs in the neighborhood. This is a wild animal. You have no idea how it's going to respond. And the only thing that I know to do when you are around a wild animal is don't run away. Don't act afraid. You want to act like you're in charge, even act as if you're the predator. Mm-hmm. And the more calm you are, the better. And so I just stood there calmly watching this thing climb down the tree and run away. And so I told Lin Chen, I was like, no, we are okay on these trails. And, I saw a bear yesterday, and her face, just like this fear and fright comes over her face. And I said, but it's okay. The bears here are not mean. They are shy and timid, and they will run away from you. And I always carry a body alarm with me. Now, if you guys don't know what a body alarm is, it's this little tiny plastic device that when you pull this pin, it emits this high-pitched, piercing, nonstop alarm. It's very loud. I love carrying these in the forest with me because, one, it's a good way if you do come into an area where you know there is wildlife, you can pull that pin and just let wildlife know, hey, I'm around. Yeah. I know you don't like this noise, but how about we keep away from each other? Another time that I'll emit that pin is when I do encounter wildlife, just to kind of scare it away. But 3, it's a great safety piece of gear to have, because if something did happen to you, let's say that you were out training, you rolled an ankle, it's going to take you a long time to get back, or the worst case scenario, you get severely lost and you lose your voice screaming and yelling for people. You have this thing that's going to attract a lot of attention to you because it's so loud. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is they sell these things on Amazon. You can get 4 for like $12. And so I always just carry one with me. So I take that little body alarm out and I put it into Lin Chen's hand. And I put it in her hand. I say, Lin, when you are afraid, you just pull that little pin and it'll bring you comfort, because that noise will scare any animal away. It scares people away. People don't like this high pitched noise. I go, but if you don't have to stay running with me the whole time. If you need to run ahead, please do. We will always be on the same course together. We're just doing it an out and back. I go, but I will find you. And so you can keep that with you. Now she had a pack and everything, but she was so grateful for this. She held on to that body alarm and she held on to it the entire run, the entire time. She never slipped it into her pocket. She didn't put it into her hydration vest. She gripped that thing with all her might, and she stayed running with me the entire time. She never left my side. On some of the climbs, she'd go a little bit ahead, but if she got too far ahead, which was like more than 50 feet, she would stop and turn around and wait for me. And it was really cool. So I communicate that she's going to be okay. I communicate to the coach, I got her. This is where we're going to turn around. And it ended up being that she ran a marathon with me that day. So the app only works when you have Wi-Fi. So once we left Michigan Bluff, there was no more communicating with Lin Chen. We ran in silence, and she probably knew 1 or 2 English words.
Mhm.
Like there was one or two things I could say, but everything else was us like using our hands and facial expressions and pointing and smiling at each other to try and direct things. We get our maps out. There was a couple times that we went off course like by 50 feet. And we would redirect each other, you know, into the right way. And I would try to tell her, like when we got to Devil's Thumb to the top of it, I showed her like trail signs, and I'd say this is an aid station on the Western States course. I'd try to help her understand, like, this is where you're gonna come, like this is on race day, you're gonna be here, and this is the big climb. And we ended up passing two different groups of people who were marking the course, and one of them is MJ. Big shout out to MJ, who's the course director for Canyons 100, and she's also a former soccer player. Nice. She was out there marking the course with her friend, and she got to meet Lin Chen. We even got a picture. I'll put that picture. I think we even have a video of it into our YouTube channel. It was such a pleasure to meet MJ. She's part of the Choose Strong community. She listens to the podcast, and she made a friend with Lin Chen that day too. But Lin Chen made that training day much stronger than had I run it on my own, because we kept a good clip. I mean, she pushed every climb and was so focused every single mile, all dialed in every single mile of that run. I mean, it was incredible.
That's awesome.
And I remember thinking that as I was following her, because there were some points where I was like, oh my gosh, Sally, you are not as fast as her. You're not as strong as her. You're not moving as well as her. Like, I remember at some points just like kind of getting down on myself. And then I was like, no, this is the beauty of training.
Yeah.
Lin Chen is bringing the best out of me and saying, hey, you need to make sure you're locked in these areas on race day. You need to make sure that when you go home, you continue to work on your weaknesses. And she was such a pleasure and a joy to run with. And it was crazy because we didn't get to share a lot of stories. Like, I don't know a lot about her running background or where she started or what her home life is like, or if she has brothers or sisters, or if she's married or has a boyfriend. You know, I didn't get to learn about what her favorite nutrition was, or, you know, we drank from the creeks. We splashed our faces off in the rivers. There's definitely some very hot sections. We giggled because we were basically dressed the exact same way. And I was like, you heat training, huh? And she's like, yeah, you heat training. But then also we were like, we're all also both very cold. Yeah. We came from colder climates. And so this is also cold for us. But we finally make it back to Michigan Bluff, where her coach picks us up, and he drove us back to Forest Hill, where my car was parked. And she just kept saying thank you over and over again. And I get out of the car and I say, let's take a picture together. And we're using that Translate app, you know, back and forth. And she grabs the phone from me and she says to me, thank you for running for me. You are a good runner. You are my first ever American friend. And I can't tell you how much that just blessed my heart, because Lin Chen has come here to train for 8 weeks. And she is living in Auburn for the next 2 months, fully dedicated and focused on running a strong race at Western States 100. And I was gifted the great opportunity to be able to run with her on her first day in America and show her a section of the course that she's absolutely going to crush on race day. And I got to be her first friend.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So, when I woke up that morning, Eddie, I was not planning on doing that. See, I had a plan that day for myself. My plan was to have a strong day in the Double Canyons by myself. And I didn't know how the day was going to unfold, but it unfolded unexpectedly. And I'll tell you what, when I look back on that, I could have very well dismissed Lin Chen and her coach. I could have been like, hey, sorry, I have no idea what you're saying. I'm going to continue on because I need to focus on my training. And I hope that you guys, you know, I'll point you in the direction you need to go, and hopefully you guys can get some good training in. But, you know, there would have been nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with just, hey, great to meet you guys here in the middle of nowhere. And here's how you get back to where you're going. And then continued on with my training. There's not a lot of times in my life or in my career where I've met someone in the middle of the forest who didn't speak my language. And I was like, you want to go run a marathon
Right.
with me? Hey, but you know what, listeners? This is the beauty in life. These are the moments that make up some super cool chapters in your story. Open up your heart to the people around you. When you stay aware that life is going on around you, that when you wake up in the morning, life is not just about you. It's about how you connect with the people around you. How can you continue to impact and grow with the community around you? And you also understand that as you connect with people, you get to bring out the better side of yourself. And you get to make friends along the way, which in turn really, really makes for a fulfilling life.
Yep.
See, Lin Chen made that whole entire training camp wonderful, memorable, enjoyable. I made a new friend. I will never forget that. I'll never forget this story forever. In fact, Eddie, we were kind of relating it back to in 2011, I think it was. I used to work for Stephen Curtis Chapman's organization, Show Hope. And after we had Mackenzie, we moved back to Huntington Beach. And my good friend Nick, who worked at Show Hope, was getting married. And we now had 2 kids. And I was invited to Nick's wedding in Tennessee. And, at this time in my life, I was really busy. I was stressed out with the kiddos. Kids were like 1 and 3. I was running my own fitness business. I think I was sleeping about 4 hours a night. I was running a lot. And it seemed really, it was one of those things where, well, the whole family can't go to this wedding, drop everything. You were like 70 hours a week at the church working. And you actually saw this as an opportunity to like gift me a break. And you're like, you know what, go. I want you to book that flight. And I think you should go have, because it was like a reunion too.
Yeah.
See, everyone I had worked with who is just still some of the most precious friends in my life, who I love, who've impacted me and encouraged me, mentored me greatly. So we had Scott and Carrie Hasenbach. We had Stephen and Mary Beth Chapman, Wendy Cosby, and then, of course, Nick. And it was such a special event. And you were like, just go. Well, it was the beginning of a journey that I wasn't expecting, but it goes hand in hand with the story I just told you about Lin Chen. I get on this plane and it's in the fall. It's early in the fall. It's like September, October time, if I remember right. It's starting to cool down, maybe. And suddenly we're in the air on the plane, making our way to Tennessee. And I'm kind of, I don't know, listeners, I don't know how you are on a plane. I'm 50-50 with communicating with people on the plane. Sometimes I go on a plane and I will just talk it up with anyone sitting next to me, in front of me, behind me. 50% of the time, I'm really quiet. I'll put in my headphones and I'll read or I'll write. I'll just use it as very quiet, meditative, Yeah. I'm not rude. I just kind of keep to myself and just use that time in a different way. This particular time, I had an aisle seat, and while we are in the air, maybe an hour and a half into the flight, we learn that there is a storm in Tennessee, which is kind of not common. A snowstorm. We are not able to land in Tennessee. And they say, we are going to redirect you. We're going to land in Kentucky. And the wedding was the next evening. So I was landing the evening before. So about 24 hours before the wedding, I would be landing in Tennessee. But now we will be landing in Kentucky. And the option that's given to us is you can rent a car and you can drive down to Tennessee. Now, I've never rented a car from Kentucky and driven down to Tennessee, much less in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
Now, if you have grown up in adverse weather, you're used to driving in the snow, you're just driving in the freezing cold and ice and all that. You kind of know what to do. You feel a little bit more comfortable, right? Not me. And the other option is get back on the plane and go home. Because what are we going to do? Can I get another flight in time? That's going to be super expensive to now hope that maybe by the next morning I can get a flight and make it in time before the wedding. So we land, and it's like golden hour when we land. It's maybe like 6, 7 o'clock at night. The sun is still barely around. And as we were landing, there's a lot of people that need to get to Tennessee. And I'm talking, I had made friends on the flight with this elder guy. He's probably like in his late 50s. He's sitting right across me, super friendly. A couple other people around me were chatting up, because now everyone on the plane is trying to figure out, what are we going to do? Some people are going to get hotels. Some people are going to get car rentals. And so I get off the plane, and this guy keeps on talking to me. And he then says, he's like, I know it sounds crazy, but it would probably be wisest if we both split the price of a rental car, and we could just carpool down to Tennessee together. I agreed. I agreed to rent a car with a complete stranger and drive through the night in a snowstorm to Tennessee.
Sounds like a movie. That doesn't end well. Yeah.
That does not end well. And let me tell you, when people found out that I was doing that, my phone was blowing up. Sally, he could be an axe murderer. This guy could drive you out to the back country, and it would not end well. Sally, what are you doing? What are you thinking? But I'll tell you what, I've only had a handful of times in my life where this has happened, but I had this, and I would say I'm somewhat of a discerning person. Mm-hmm. I consider myself kind of a protective mama bear, and I'm a mom.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. I got 2 babies back at home. I'm a young woman. We got married young. Like I'm not this, I'm thinking in my mind about all of the ways that I look to somebody. Yeah. I'm just this young woman, this young, naive woman. But I think I've had even at this point in my life, enough life experience. I've been well traveled already at this point in my life, that I have always been very comfortable no matter what country I go to. Very aware, very self-aware. I think it's good to have a certain amount of respectful fear. Be aware of your surroundings and who you are. Stay aware of, like, hey, read the lines, because I can tell very quickly. I've done this even when I go run adventuring. Okay, I shouldn't be here. And I can't tell you how many times I've stopped where I am in the middle of a neighborhood or on a trail, and I'm like, I need to turn around and get out of here. This isn't, there's something in me that's telling me I need to get out of here. It's a bad vibe. But this man's name was John, and he was from Alaska, from the outskirts of Alaska, like off the grid, Alaska. This guy knew how to drive in the snow. And he was a very meek, gentle person. I noticed that about him when he was on the plane. And he was very non-assuming. I mean, in all of the ways that I was trying to size him up and think, would this be wise?
Yeah.
Is this unsafe? Probably the thing that maybe I didn't do that I should have done, and I can't even remember actually if I ever reached out to you. Hey, Ed, do you think this is a good idea? I don't think I made that phone call.
I don't think I got that call. Because I would have been like, no, not a good idea.
Hey, babe, the man that wants to take you in his car across state lines might not be a good idea.
Not a good idea.
I'll tell you what. It wasn't a good idea, even as I'm telling the story. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't suggest people to do this, but really I'm telling the story because I don't know why. There have been a handful of times in my 45 years here on the earth, only a handful of times where there has been this moment, this event is unraveling before me, and I see it as there's something going on here. There's something bigger, greater going on. And I have this amazing amount of peace and quiet about it. And I did. I was like, I don't know why. I just feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. This is like, I feel okay. I do feel safe. I don't feel I don't feel an ounce of fear
Yeah.
whatsoever. And not that matters in a big way, because if John had a gun, obviously it doesn't matter what his physical state was. But I do remember once or twice thinking, yeah, I could take him in an arm wrestling contest. I could definitely beat this guy up, and I could definitely outrun him. There's nothing about him where I would ever be afraid physically.
Yeah.
I'll just put it that way. But again, if he had a weapon, that doesn't matter.
Yep.
Thankfully, John didn't have a weapon. Thankfully, John was one of the kindest, most gentle souls I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what happened. We get into this car. We start heading down the highway. Within 30 minutes, the sun is down. And I touch base with Wendy. And I say, hey, Wendy, you can't pick me up at the airport. It's shut down. I won't be arriving in Nashville. I will be driving and arriving at your house, likely in the middle of the night, probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And she's a little alarmed, like, wow, you're driving down, like driving in the snow, like, please be safe. And I'm like, no, don't worry. I met someone on a plane.
I'm in a rental van with John. He's got me.
I met an elderly man on a plane who's driving me down, and she's like, what? So Wendy then tells my friend Carrie Hasenbach, and both of them are texting me like, get out of the car. What are you doing? It's not worth it. Just go back to the airport. I mean, it's this back and forth. And I assure both of them, listen, I am fine. I feel safe. I don't have an ounce of fear in me.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, this is the way that I am supposed to get from point A to point B. It's as John is the driver. So John and I, we don't just talk surfacey. John and I deep dive deep. I learned everything about John's life. And we are now approaching 11 p.m. as we're driving along, or 10 p.m.
Did you touch on John's criminal history, criminal background at all? Trying to get to the root of John?
All I know is it's late in the night. I don't even remember how long this drive was, but I remember it was late in the night, and he's like, we should pull over and get some gas. The snow is falling. There's cars along the highway that have been pulled over. I mean, it was a legit storm. And John was so calm. He's like, I'm from Alaska. Like, we're good.
This is nothing.
We had a good car. He's like, but why don't we pull over to this gas station? We could grab a cup of coffee, and we can use the bathroom. I'll fill up the gas tank. So I go inside, I use the bathroom. And I remember as I'm washing my hands looking in the mirror, I look at in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back at myself, this is a scene from a movie. And I actually just start praying. And I start praying, and I pray, all right, God, show me why this is folding out the way it is, and also keep us safe.
Yeah.
So then I walk back out, and there's like this little cafe attached to the gas station. And John is sitting in this table. He had gotten me a cup of coffee, and he's like, I got you a cup of coffee. I thought maybe you'd want to sit for a minute, not in the car. Maybe we can drink down this coffee. He's like, I'll be honest, it's a crappy cup of coffee.
You're like, well, why don't you try it first then? Prove to me.
He's like, drink up and I'll tell you. So we're sitting there drinking our cup of coffee, and the snow is falling against this pitch black sky. I mean, we're right off this highway. There's not a lot around us. And we were continuing our conversation. So he's telling me about his family. Mm-hmm. I go, I've never met anyone from Alaska, much less like, well, actually I did know people from Alaska because of Biola, but like where he was from, like he lived off the grid in Alaska. I'm like, wow, I've never met anyone that's lived off the grid like in Alaska. It's amazing. He's got these amazing stories. He's telling me how he homeschools his boys, got a couple boys, couple high school boys. And he's like, yeah, I've pretty much raised them myself. I've taught them everything, how to live off the grid, but also, I've homeschooled them. And I don't hear him very much talking about a partner. Mm-hmm. He just keeps talking about his boys. And it sounds like he's a very devoted dad. And he was coming to Tennessee for this conference, and he was going to speak. He was one of the speakers at this conference. He's a fascinating man. The way he's lived his life, very simple, very gritty. And as we're sitting in this little cafe, he begins to open up a little part of himself that I thought in that moment, I wonder when the last time was that he opened up to someone in this way. And he says, life has been really hard. I've raised my kids because, my wife has had a really tough time, and she's mentally ill and tried to set fire to our house when we were all in it. And you could just see on his face the sadness in his face, because it sounded like he loved her. They weren't any longer together. I don't know if she was actually in jail. I can't remember. The situation seemed very sensitive, but she wasn't around. And that's why he was the one raising his boys. But he just started to share his heart and his pain and the ache and the loneliness that he experienced through all of that, raising these two boys. In a way, being betrayed. I would think being betrayed in love and in that marriage relationship. I mean, the pain that comes with that. And then it was kind of like, hey, we should probably get back on the road, And as we made our way out of that little cafe and into the night, I sat in the car. I was a little quiet, like just watching the snowfall as we drove along. And I just looked at him and I was like, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I go, I can't imagine what that was like. And I was like, I'll tell you what. And I just started to kind of put these like little puzzle pieces together. I said, I think I was supposed to meet you because, life is like really busy for me right now. I'm kind of in the season of being overwhelmed. I'm raising babies. I'm trying to run a business. And, my husband, such a gift, like let me come out here. And I just really wanted to get to Tennessee.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, like I needed to be at this wedding. I needed to see friends. I needed to just kind of get out of myself. And it was so important that I got to Tennessee and not got back on the airplane and went back to LA. And I'm realizing this massive storm was keeping me from where I wanted to go. But you've been like my guide in this storm. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that you're driving through the entire night, and we're seeing cars pulled off on the side of the road. And we just continued through the night to have this we talked the entire time. We talked all the way until we arrived at Wendy's doorstep. And he said, Sally, if I can just ask one thing of you, it's, do you mind if I use the bathroom? And it's the middle of the night or in the morning. I don't know, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., what time it was that we arrived. So I asked Wendy, can John use the bathroom? And, John is the man that she's terrified of.
Yeah.
So I have to tell her he's great. And Wendy is just so precious. She's like, of course, let him use the bathroom. And before John leaves, I said, hey, let's exchange phone numbers. I would love to know that you also arrived safely. And so we exchange phone numbers. And I thank him. I thank you so much. And he just walked to his car and drove away. And I'm standing there with my bags with Wendy next to me, like, seriously? And she shows me up to room. It's so late. We all go to bed. So I fall asleep immediately. I'm exhausted. It was a long trip. I wake up in the morning to a text from John. And he says, I just wanted you to know, Sally, I arrived safely. You don't need to respond to this text, but I want to thank you for being the angel to me in the passenger seat. You have no idea how much that blessed me. And then I never heard from him again. And I had all kinds of emotions when I woke up that morning. The sun shining into my room. And suddenly this veil of peace that I had felt when I first got into that rental car with John was taken away. And the very human mother side of me was like, what did I do? I can't believe that I got into a car with a stranger. I have babies at home. This guy could have done A, B, and C to me. Like, I would never suggest that to anybody. I'd
Yeah,
never
no.
suggest, like, I can't imagine Mackenzie doing that, right? Like, it's all the things that are that we are afraid of in life, the fears that we have rushed in.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting. I really like hung on that for a minute, how I went from having so much peace, having this incredible experience. This John took me through the storm to get to where I needed to go. And then it was like, that was taken away. It was really powerful. But then I recollected myself, I got my cup of coffee. And then the more that I talked about it, and then after having the most incredible weekend, reuniting with friends, I sat in that wedding ceremony in the audience. I cried through the entire message. I mean, it was such a beautiful message. And that whole weekend was rejuvenating. I remember coming home from that weekend and just feeling like new life had been breathed into me. I had completely, the adventure that I had outside of my small circle in Southern California, right? Outside of that mundane day in, day out as a young mom, with babies, I went and had this crazy, wild experience that at the end of the day, what I took away from that was that there is a great big world going on all around us. And it's really easy to turn inward and only focus on what we have to do, what we're going through, the bummers in our life, the things that aren't lining up, our letdowns, our losses, and just stay there. Or feel like, man, I just feel like I'm on this conveyor belt. And it's just the same thing every day. I get up, I do this, I go to bed, I do this. I get up, go to bed, I do that. It's easy to feel like we're just locked in to place when really we have the opportunity every day to step off the conveyor belt. And I'm not saying like quit your job, and stop being responsible for what you're supposed to do. But sometimes we need to flip our perspective. Sometimes we need to lift our heads and look around us and really understand that life is happening all around us, and connecting with community and neighbors and reaching out to strangers in friendliness and kindness can change our life, can make a lasting impact, a lasting impression. See, John, I had that little stretch with John, but that interaction has left a massive impact. I'll never forget that story. And that was 14 years ago. That's wild to think. 14, 15 years ago. I think Isaiah was maybe one or two, and he's 16 now. And I love that my life is dotted with that. I know your life is dotted with that. You have all these like experiences that kind of changed you, flipped that perspective, made you think twice, or opened up your eyes, or gave you hope, or helped you understand your purpose in this world, or just filled your heart with joy or hope. In this instance, when I look at running into Lin Chen, when I look at running into John, and these are just two stories. I have so many stories like this that you and I have, I know you do too, Eddie, that we have shared throughout our life together. And I love sharing these stories because there's nothing really extravagant about them. It isn't like this big accomplishment that happened. There isn't like this Guinness Book of World Records, or like suddenly this financial like massive overflowing that came to me, or success. It's just like really cool human interactions and the beauty and joy that came out of them and how they changed my life. And here's the thing, you could be on the other side of that. If you understand that you can be that person to somebody else, it doesn't take a special personality. It doesn't take a certain position in society. It's just opening up your eyes and heart to the world around you and realizing that sometimes you strike up a conversation with that person in the coffee house. You open up the door for the person at the grocery store. you stop to chat with your neighbor, you're both walking your dogs. I mean, you just don't know what's going to unfold from all of that. So
yeah, that's super cool. I love just the picture as you were explaining and sharing that story with Lynn Chen about you guys running for so long just in silence, but yet have this deep kind of connection because, you're running, you're doing the same thing and out there together, and that bond between you guys was the run and the outdoors, and didn't even need to say anything, but you just had this connection. That's pretty cool.
And I think for those of you that have had experiences like this in the trail running and just the running world, the endurance world.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've met some super cool people in the gym too. You know, you pause and have a conversation with someone. You're both lifting weights. It's like, oh, cool. Like we're making a good connection. But I think, a lot of people can relate to this, that I've met some cool, they can say I've met really cool people at races.
Yeah.
Or I've met like some of my best friends or my life partners because I was outdoors, like just gave a chance to say hi, or help someone on the trail, or just ran into somebody. And, we hear this often. This is why people like being a part of the community. They feel like they're a part of something greater, and they have people they can relate to and talk to. And there's nothing better than uninterrupted conversation for 1, 2, 3 hours for a training run on the weekend. And, I find so much joy in that, but it is all around us. I train pretty often in the Laguna Canyons, and I don't think there's a training session that goes by where I don't stop to talk to somebody. And I've met some really awesome people, especially in the last few weeks. And, usually the encounter is like, oh, hey, Sally, and we'll say hi or whatever. But I love just to actually like stop and talk. And people are like, dude, I'm so sorry making you stop in your training. And I'm like, no, like this is literally why I love what I do. I get to meet people. I get to hear about their life, what they're training for. And then sometimes I get to learn a little bit about their story that has nothing to do with running. And it's because of these stories throughout my life, all these chance interactions that I've had all over the world.
Yeah.
This isn't just in my neighborhood. I mean, I have some super cool stories about while being in other countries, of where you take a chance to connect with somebody, and the connections that come out of that. One that like pops up into my mind that's so precious to me is, the week that your aunt passed away, Aunt Diana. And I was supposed to go run the race in Australia. And it was a 100K race. I was very excited to do this. And I had a lot of media commitments. I had some interviews, some photo shoots. I mean, there's a lot that I was supposed to do. And I was like, I don't think I can race. Like that loss really hit me pretty hard. I remember helping out a lot, just being bedside with her every day in the days leading up before she passed away. And she passed away on Mother's Day. It was a really, really hard time. And I still traveled to the race. I felt pretty heavily about like, I need to stay with my commitments. As an athlete, I need to be over there racing. And in the first 1K, I started having a panic attack. I remember having a hard time breathing. I knew I should not be racing. So the resulting race was pretty terrible. I think I walked the last 12 miles of that race. It was horrible time, performance, everything. And it would have been really easy for me to just beat myself up and to be really upset about just traveling over there in the first place. But after the race, I had a commitment to go and speak. There's a really cool coffee house there, and it was a big showing. Rob Carr was also speaking, and so we were both kind of like on this panel. And great night, great, interaction. I really filled my heart, got to meet a lot of incredible Aussies. But what I understood, the most important reason why I traveled all the way to Australia was to meet this mom. And this mom came up to me and she said, Sally, I was so hoping that I was able to meet you. And she says, my daughter got, this was May. My daughter got sick in December. And 6 weeks later, she died. And I have been following your journey and the things that you post. And I just want to say thank you, because it's helped me get out the door and to move and to run and to be strong, remembering her. And we just embraced each other. We both cried. And I remember getting back on the plane and thinking about how we had just lost Aunt Diana. And this woman had to watch her baby, her young girl. I think her daughter was in elementary school, so she was young. And this woman was on the other side of the world. And I went over there thinking I need to have a great race performance. But really, the reason why I traveled all over there was to make that sweet connection. And I remember that as the most impactful part of my entire trip. Knowing the great gift of running is not just about the training. It's not just about what place am I going to get on the podium, but the opportunity to move through the world on my own 2 feet and connect with people in a real way, in a real, raw way. And those interactions are what have made my career full, because that's lasting.
Yep.
That is lasting. When we choose to keep going, it encourages other people to keep going too. When we choose to keep taking another step in the face of loss, sadness, hardship, it shows other people what's possible. That if they can move through loss, then I can move through loss too. And that's really how me and this woman connected. She understood the loss that I had throughout my life. And for her, that was a beacon of hope. And I think that's something we all possess. I don't have a special story. All of us, all of our listeners have experienced loss. All of our listeners have experienced great pain and frustration and letdown and failure. That's not unique to me, but it's always examining that every part of our life, the highs and the lows, can be used for something greater and can be used for a lot of good. And so that's how Western States training is going, Ed.
Wow, that was a long-winded answer.
Right? Well, I just want to encourage our listeners today. I really wanted to kind of flip the perspective on the Choose Strong podcast today, and kind of take you guys down another road of your training. That's really where the heart of today's message is for as much as you choose to get up each day and move your body, whether you're getting out for a walk, a run, you're lining up at that start line to race, you're picking up that dumbbell to strengthen. I want to tell you something. Strengthening your body to move through your life is one of the most valuable things you can do, because it isn't come down to what your physical feats can do, but the way that you connect with people along the way.
Yep.
Because you're training in the gym, you're surrounded by other people that you can connect with. Because you're training for that race, you're going to get to the start line and the finish line and be surrounded by people. And when you take a chance to open up your heart and your mind and look around and maybe ask yourself, what's going on here? Just like I did with Lin Chen, just like I did with John, just like I did when I traveled to Australia, despite it all. You don't know what cool story is going to come out of that or how it's going to impact your life and your journey ahead. So to all of our listeners today, I just want to tell you that I see you and I appreciate you. I appreciate who you are, and I hope that you appreciate who you are and this life this dream journey that you are on. Never stop working toward it. Never stop building. Eddie and I are rooting for you every step of the way. We are so proud of you, and we'll always be encouraging you to keep choosing strong in all you do.